Welcome to the 520th episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Well, it's been a minute. I think this is one of the longest stretches I've gone without doing a podcast, and I apologize. I actually missed it. The reality of it is I have done a podcast. I just haven't got it up. I am transitioning to being able to have both video and audio, and it's been a little complicated trying to get everything up and change platforms. So I'm in the middle of getting a audio and video episode up, and I would the goal, I guess, is going to be able to do 2 video episodes a month and 2 audio episodes a month will be my ultimate plan. So stay tuned. Certainly we'll be announcing it on social media, and you'll be able to see it or just listen as well, just on iTunes, but it'll be on audio and video in Spotify and YouTube. So wherever you listen to, you'll be able to listen to as well. It'll also be up on my website at drdulaney.com, as are all of these episodes. So don't give up on me. You're going to see me doing a video. It'll be the first time I've used these type of platforms, so I hope you enjoy it. I will look forward to your feedback. Tony the cat and the German Shepherds did not make an appearance this time, but I suspect that they will in the near future. One thing that has been constant is my running and continued build-up for the Leadville 100, ultimately in August. So this past weekend, we were on the trails in north central Florida doing a night run. So we did 16.4 miles in the Florida heat and humidity. It was 95 degrees at the beginning. It was probably not much less than 90 degrees at the end at 4.5 hours. But we went up for a training run, and the idea of a training run is to run on the trail, test out equipment, see how we did. Hoping that the humidity and heat training is going to translate into altitude training. That is what's promised. It's about all we've got. Did manage to climb about 1,000 feet during that training run, so only 14,000 feet to go for Leadville, who that's what we got, so that's what we're going to do. Had the opportunity to run through some more sugar sand, which is the soft sand when you get to the beach. So this run had about 0.7 miles of that. Got to navigate. Also got to make a rookie mistake. On the first, they were loops of 7.1 that turned out to be loops of 7.4 miles, which turned out to be 8.2 miles, actually 8.6 miles. I made a rookie mistake and was watching people in front of me, not watching the little flags that are pinned on trees, thinking that everything was okay because I had plenty of people in front of me that I could see. And then all of a sudden they stopped and said we're going the wrong direction. So we had to backtrack about 0.7 of a mile. So that added 1.4 miles onto our 7.4 mile loop. So that made for a little bit longer of a loop. Made it so we could get in the dark earlier, test out. I use a waist lamp as well as a headlamp. So got to test that out. There were some ridge, rocks, a little bit of hills, like I said, but nothing too terrible. Just really, really hot. I wore a vest, running vest that I will be wearing at Leadville. I used a full bladder of 1.8 liters to try to mimic the weight I would be carrying, as well as 2 14-ounce flasks with electrolyte solution. So I had water in the back, electrolyte solution in the front, and then some gels and gummy worms in there. And then the idea would be to come back and pick up some more food or gels on the loop as you come back past the car. So it was hot, and I had a lot of weight on me, about 5-6 pounds on that. So what I learned from that is I don't want to do that at Leadville. It adds time. It makes you run slower when you're carrying more weight, and it takes more time to fill that bladder than it does bottles. I need all the time I can get on my side, so I'm going to ditch the bladder and just go with bottles henceforth to lighten my load, since lighting my physical load is probably not in my best interest. So it wouldn't be bad if I could keep muscle, but I can't afford to lose any muscle. I actually could always gain a little muscle for the hill climb. So I'm going to lighten my load by lightening my pack. It's kind of funny because if I travel, I tend to take more things than I need. And so it would only make sense that when I run, I take more things than I ultimately need to carry. So I got to fix that problem. So that problem is fixed, at least alternation, or going to alter how I'm doing things. I like the light source that we use, so that's a good thing. Felt pretty good. The ankle's really coming along nicely. Felt like I did the little downhills pretty good. Need to work just a little bit more on letting the speed go, but I think if I get rid of the vest weight a little bit, that'll help the speed idea of things. So learned a lot. Things are coming together from that aspect, and in 2 weeks we'll be headed out to Colorado to altitude to practice running on the course for the Leadville 100, so we'll do sections of that. Maybe I can take some video. I can actually post that in one of these episodes. Who knows? I might be able to actually accomplish it. So anyway, this podcast is somewhat about distractions. And when I talk about distractions, I mean distractions from what is your ultimate goal. So I'll give you some examples from myself, and you can apply them to what might be distracting you from obtaining your health goals or health goals, whether it be exertional health goals or reversing disease or whatever. But the way I look at it, there are distractions. They come from within and they come from outside sources. And both feed on each other and cause things to smolder, and the next thing you know, as I would put it, the wheels are falling off and you're not going to reach your health goals, or you're not going the direction that you'd hoped as fast as you would, perhaps. So if we look at outside distraction, they're the distractions that usually come from other people. They try to talk you out of what you want. Everybody would like you to eat what they like to eat, look like them, exercise like them. So it may be about, come on, you can have one breakfast, one treat here or there is not going to hurt you. A cheat meal here or there is not going to hurt you. Nobody does this all the time. It's not possible to be good and on task all the time. Just one bite. Cheat days don't matter. You don't know what you're missing. This would really be good. We're on vacation. Live a little bit. You only live once. Something's going to kill you. Something's going to get you. You can't live forever. It's not that bad. One meal, one day of exercising is not going to mess things up. You're missing all the fun. It doesn't matter anyway. I've heard of people that do all these things and it never helps them at all. So what happens if you don't eat animal products and you don't eat sugary desserts and you still get sick? How do you know it's going to help? Maybe have a cigarette or two. That won't hurt. Have an extra drink or two. That won't hurt. Or when it comes to exercise, it's too hot, somebody cancels out on you, they didn't show up, they cancel out in the last minute, hey, I was going to make it, but I can't. Then you're like, well, if they didn't make it, I'm not going to do it. You're on vacation, you don't need to exercise, on and on and on. You get the idea. People that you thought were your friends, or perhaps people that are supposed to be your accountability buddy doesn't show up, and you're left standing there. It's hard to keep motivated when you were depending on these people. So then you start your own self-talk. Well, if I don't have an accountability partner, I'm just not motivated. I need somebody to motivate me because I'm not motivated. It's really too hot or too cold to exercise. It's not convenient. Nobody else is. I think I need a rest day. I'm not really feeling it. My ankle hurts. My feet hurt. My back hurts. I'm just a little stiff. I'm probably doing too much. I hear you only have to do this a little bit. I kind of did intervals yesterday, so I really don't need to do anything today. I pretty much exercise every day, so I can take a few days off. You've heard that dialogue before. These are all distractions that get you not looking at your ultimate goal, not take away your focus, get you thinking something else, get your mind going into another direction, and pretty soon you start to come up with reasons why perhaps the goal wasn't even a good goal to start with, and it just doesn't matter. It's easy to blame other people because, after all, you were very goal-oriented and you had a plan, but then they distracted you, and it's really hard to get back on the plan, and nobody cares anyway, and just probably not that motivated. And you start the little pity party, and one thing leads to another, and you're having trouble achieving either your exercise goals or your health goals in general, and things stay status quo. Actually, they might not even stay status quo. You might even lose ground. And if they stay status quo, well, then that's basically interpreted as a win because, things can't get better every day. So we'll just hold it right here and it'll be safe and comfortable and we won't change anything. Maybe it comes down to, if I didn't have distractions, this would be easy. If I didn't have to cook for my husband, I could do this. If I didn't have to wait on my children and cook 5 different meals, I could do this. If I didn't have to work so early, I could get my exercise in. If it wasn't so hot, I'd be able to get out and do these things. So it's not working out. What it comes down to is you probably didn't have a plan to start with. You were hoping that somebody would pull you along, perhaps, or at least support you in your goal, but it probably wasn't that well defined. What is it exactly that you want? Can it even happen? Your doctor's probably telling you can't ever get off a cholesterol medication or a blood pressure medication, so you're going to have to be on the rest of your life. Diabetes is hereditary, so there's nothing you can do about that. The doctor said so. And God only knows, osteoarthritis just happens as you get old, and you played football when you were 16, so you were set up for disaster anyway. So it goes on and on and on. But the reality of it is, do you have a plan? Because if you have a plan, you can make it better. If you have a plan and you work the plan, you can make it better. But you need to stay away from the distractions, and you need to keep your focus. And that's what takes practice, is realizing where the distractions are coming from and recognizing them so that you don't get distracted and you stay with your plan. If you really want to achieve your goals, then you may have to rework your plan a little bit. So it doesn't, best laid plans, everybody's heard that excuse. Things happen, life gets in the road, the weather does change, can't go outside in the lightning. If you don't have a gym membership, you're messed up. But you have to work around it. So if you have a goal, then you have to rework your plans so that you can accomplish what it was for your goal. So if you have a plan, then you can figure out how to alter that plan to stay on it as opposed to throwing it out, because you're not being distracted by other people and you don't let the self-talk sabotage yourself. So you have to troubleshoot. And that can be fun. How do you get around it? Because you'll feel so much better if you troubleshoot around a distraction and accomplish your goal as opposed to just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It might come down to doing your exercise at a different time of the day, a different day, adding more on during the week than the weekend. It may come down to eating before you go to a party, eating your own food, bringing your own food. But you have to have a plan, because it is too hard and too tempting to just throw it to the wind if you don't have some sort of a basic plan that you can alter from and troubleshoot from. It's not that people don't have good intentions. Everybody would like to be healthy. Everybody would like to lose weight. Everybody would like to exercise on every day and achieve their health goals. But again, things get in the way, and we don't seem to have a plan. When I was small, I had an aunt that lived in the country, and she didn't have running water, and she lived in that house in the summertime. In the wintertime, she taught school in Virginia, so she would live in an apartment in the city in Virginia. Then she would come back to rural Pennsylvania and live in her house during the summertime that didn't have running water. And she was a really fun aunt. She would come and pick my cousins and I up and take us into the little town. Actually, we learned to drive on her car, even though we were well, at first we could steer before we could even touch the gas pedals, but she let us drive. So she taught us all to drive very well before we were 10 years old. So she was the fun aunt. She was the aunt that took us places and took us to get, a treat now and then. But she also told us she was going to have a pool built, and she was going to have a pool built on the property. And we believed her, and she did. I would guess that she wanted to have a pool built on her property in rural Pennsylvania. The problem was she didn't have running water. So it's pretty hard to build a pool if you don't have running water. They had a well. So my grandmother would say, it's not going to happen. It's like, oh, yes, it's going to happen. She had good intentions, but she didn't have a plan on how she was going to get water so that she could have a pool or anything else about the pool. But she did make us happy. Some people think that they're doing everything just right and perfect, yet it's not working. Something is just backfiring and they're not getting to their goals, but they're doing nothing wrong. And so that comes down to, is it truly perfection or is it the perception of perfection? Because we tend to see the good things. So we see what we're doing, but we look over some of the things that we're missing on. We often look over those distractions. Most people that are very good at attaining big goals are very focused, and they're never satisfied. They never use the word that they're doing everything to perfection. If anything, they're not doing things good enough. They're always striving to get a little bit better, to tweak things, to work a little bit harder, because they just don't feel like they measure up. They look around and they see people that are accomplishing more than they are perhaps, and they're striving to get better all the time and doing whatever they can, and they have a plan and they rework the plan, trying to achieve their goals. It's much different than if you assume that everything is right, you don't have a plan, and you just don't know why it's not working. Most people that aren't having success and think that they're doing everything right thinks that the people that appear to be working a plan just have it easy. They're just luckier to be able to follow a plan. They're just lucky to be achieving their goal. They're lucky not to have to lose weight. They're lucky not to have any health problems. They don't see what's going on in the background, because the people that are really working and not seeing themselves as perfection are still striving and grinding and working to try to get to those goals. And ultimately, they enjoy the process. They enjoy the process of tweaking. It's like the inventor that, is down in the garage and making things and tweaking things and coming up with new things. Often people are doing that as well, that are successful at their goals. They're trying to figure out how they can get just a little bit better. But I think the real difference is they enjoy the process. You have to enjoy the process, not just be willing to suffer a little bit to get to the goal. How little do I have to do to ultimately get what I want is not the same as enjoying the process of working and planning and changing and altering the plan to get results. And accepting that the results don't come immediate, but they come slowly, and sometimes you have to look for the results. How do you maximize your chances for success? You have to define the goal very specifically. I want to be healthy doesn't count. I want to lose weight doesn't count. How much weight do you want to lose? How much weight per week do you want to lose? What does healthy mean? Getting off blood pressure medication, getting off 1, 2, 3, getting off other medications, antidepressants, getting off cholesterol medications. What is the ultimate goal? Being able to increase your mileage, increase the speed at which you walk. How much can you lift? What are the exact goals that you'd like to achieve? What does health look like to you? If you compare it to the distractors, then you can say, well, if I'm a little bit better than Bonnie, because Bonnie doesn't do anything, and Bonnie eats bacon, and Bonnie eats butter, and Bonnie's on 6 medications, and I'm only on 5, Bonnie doesn't ever walk, and Bonnie doesn't exercise, and she sees 8 doctors. If you compare yourself to Bonnie, then your bar is pretty low, and it's pretty easy to achieve some goals because at least you'll be better than Barney. So the first thing is to be specific and write it down. What is it that you want ultimately? I've heard people ask, what is the minimum that I have to do? That person's not going to ultimately accomplish many goals when you're just looking with the least amount that you can do to get by. Some people call phoning it in. My mother used to call going through the motion. She would go to Zumba class and she'd see people that weren't really giving it their all. And she said, that lady, she's just going through the motions. My mom would say, I didn't jump as high on that dance I jumped as high as I could, but I tried. I hope the teacher wasn't disappointed in me. My mom was in her late 80s going to Zumba and worried that the teacher wasn't going to be happy that she wasn't jumping high enough on some of the dance moves. She was always trying to get a little bit better. How many steps do you want to get? How are you getting those steps? If it's just moving your arm back and forth, if it's riding in a car, if you know it's not accurate, how are you getting those steps? Does it take all day inside, or are you actually going for a walk? Pushing yourself just a little bit more than you think you can results in you feeling so much better than doing just enough. When you're making your plan, you need to know where you are. So what are you doing right now? So it helps to have an accurate assessment of how things are. So whether it's your weight, your blood pressure, how many medicines you're on, how much you're actually walking a day. By having some sort of calendar, I talk about calendars over and over and over again, but having some sort of documentation so you can look and see where are you right now. What's the number on the scale? What's the number on the blood pressure cuff? So you know where you are right now. What can you do exercise-wise, whether it's yoga, Pilates, Zumba? What are you doing right now so that you know you can have some estimate of how you're improving? How will you know if you improved? You just feel better? That's a perception. It might be a good perception. It may be clothes size. It may be the scale. It may be the number of blood pressure medicines. Ask questions of your doctor. Hey, my blood pressure is good at home. Why can't I get off on some of these things? If they tell you no, well, I would go, why? My blood pressure's low. If your blood pressure is really low, you're going to start to have dizziness, feel weak. You tell them about those symptoms so that ultimately they'll be forced to back off on your blood pressure medication. What are your morning glucoses? What are your glucoses 2 hours after you eat? What are your glucoses 2 hours before you eat if you're a diabetic? Those are markers that you can actually follow and see how you're going. What's the highest glucose that you've recorded? Are you seeing those glucoses now? Are you having low glucoses? Progress is actually being able to see what you're doing and then make changes accordingly. You're learning from potential failures. I'm racking up a lot of failures here lately with these ultra runs. I used to say when I ran marathons that I might not finish in the time I want, but I will always finish. Since I got injured, now I'm able to, in doing ultras, I'm able to stop and quit. It becomes easier. I talk myself into it. I can write a story on why it was justified and so forth. I can put myself out of the discomfort of doing what I'm in and get immediate comfort, but then I don't have the delayed gratification. However, I am learning a tremendous amount with my failures. I'm learning on what shoes to use, how much to carry, what nutrition to do. I've experimented with run-walk intervals. I'm now going to get rid of those. Rate of perceived exertion rather than heart rate for various different exercises. Pushing myself to do intervals a little bit out of my comfort zone. Trying new strength training techniques to see if it helps. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them have caused me to have subtle injuries. Some of them I've seen improvement with. But the process has been fun because it's allowed me to be more mindful of what's going through my head. I am not distracted by other people. but I am distracted from within. So I can come up with a story and a head game to start to write a reason why I should do something, and I have to grab a hold of myself and say, hey, what are the facts? What is really going on here? It doesn't always get worse. How can I troubleshoot to make this better? And you know what? I'm starting to look forward to the challenges. I'm starting to look forward to the things that put me out of my comfort zone, knowing full well that there'll be some discomfort while I'm doing it, but then I'll feel better about getting a little bit closer to my goals. If you're traveling and you can't find anything to eat, I hear people talk about that often. I just couldn't find anything, so therefore we went here. That's never really completely the truth, is it? I've been in airports where the first thing you see is a Beyond Burger. It's vegan, but it's loaded with oil and God only knows what else is of a chemistry experiment. But if I walk up and down the concourses a little longer, I can find something better. So it depends on what my goal is. If it's just to be vegan, the bar's pretty low, and I can get a lot of things. Potato chips are vegan. A Beyond Burger is vegan. But is that healthy? Is that going to help me achieve the health goals that I want? No. So I have to look a little bit further. Maybe it's a salad that's not quite as filling. Maybe I can find some fruit. Maybe it's just not really what I want, but it's healthier. Maybe I have to compromise on that in order to not go the other direction into I'm just going to give up and eat what I want. I don't need to go into the Publix bakery, that's our local grocery store, because I know that everything in that bakery is made with butter, eggs, milk. It's going to be in something. No need to go, not even a reason to go look or even be tempted by it. Does it smell good? Sure, it smells good. So does that rotisserie chicken that has, all that salt and fat on it. It smells good, but I know it's indigestion, high cholesterol, and heart disease for me, and diabetes. And I don't eat animal products. So it makes it easy. I'm not tempted to go look at the deli at Boar's Head because there's nothing in the deli that I'm going to eat. You might just be saying, well, there's a vegan sub you could eat. Perhaps, but would that be my best choice, to get a white sub roll made out of a bunch of chemicals and have some sort of goopy dressing put on it and vegetables that were just lettuce and, not really good? Can I do better? If I can't, maybe that would be an option. But I almost guarantee I can go back into the produce and get a real salad, get fruit, even get vegan sushi in any grocery store. So look a little harder, push yourself one more step. What is accomplishing my goals better? What is a distraction? Does one cheat meal count? Will that kill you? I happen to know of a few meals that people have eaten that were pretty bad, and it was their last meal. So I can't say that meal caused it, but I can't say that it didn't cause it. So I'll never use that as it's okay for you to cheat scenario. But the worst part about that one meal or that cheat meal is it changes your taste buds, it changes your gut microbiome, it changes what you want. There's a lot of people that'll tell me I can't eat just one. I have to eat the whole row. I have to eat the whole cake. Even if I portion it out and put it in the freezer, I have to go back and eat it. It drives me crazy till I've eaten the whole thing. Need to stay away from that. That never happens with an apple. That never happens with carrots. That never happens with whole foods. It happens with things that are processed that are addictive. So don't go there in the first place. It's a distraction. The voices that start up in your head, it's only one time, it's just this time, I got no other choice, I've had a bad day, those are distractions. Find people that are better than you, perceived or not. Find people that follow and aren't distracted. Hang out with them. Hang out with people that have achieved the goals that you want to achieve. Learn from them. Observe them. If they're telling you what you should do and you can do, those aren't your people. Your people are those that are achieving the goals that you want to achieve. There are numerous studies that show that you are more likely to be successful if you put yourself in a positive crowd as opposed to a negative crowd. If you hang out with drinkers, you're going to drink. If you hang out with overeaters, you're going to overeat. If you hang out with people that don't want to exercise, you're probably not going to exercise. If you hang out with people that aren't interested in learning, you're probably not going to be interested in learning. If you say, well, at least I'm better than blank at doing this, you're not looking in the right place. Look at people that have achieved the goals that you want to do and say, how did they do that? What are they doing? How do they act? What do they read? What do they eat? How do they exercise? Observe them. Don't just ask them. It's very unlikely that you'll convince somebody to be your motivation buddy because they need more motivation than you, most likely. And above all else, you get to write your health story. If your doctor says you can't get off statins, but your cholesterol is 200, check out another doctor. If you can't get off your blood pressure pills and you're having symptoms of low blood pressure, check out another doctor. If you don't get to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure or statin because things are getting better, check out another doctor. There's a new term, medicalization. It is the addition of new diagnoses and diseases. What actually is a disease? What do people consider a disease? What do people consider a symptom? When I was in medical school, congestive heart failure was a symptom. It was not a disease. It was symptoms of shortness of breath. When you exert yourself, lying down, swollen feet, water in the lungs. It were a constellation of symptoms, but it's not a disease. We started making diseases and numbers for diseases so we could bill insurance companies and medical industries. And the psychiatric industry started making diseases so that they could actually give new medications to treat these said diseases. There are some diseases we have no way of diagnosing them. There's no abnormal blood test. There's no abnormal x-ray. They're just diseases that we perceive are abnormalities. But sometimes they're a constellation of things that are variations of normal. There's a little bit of skew in every number. Not everybody has the exact same blood work. There's a variation. So what do we call disease? And sometimes disease that we now call disease, the treatment actually makes people do worse than if we didn't call it a disease in the first place. Gestational diabetes has been a term that when you have abnormal glucoses during pregnancy, and the diagnosis is becoming more strict over the years, but yet the outcomes as far as maternal health and baby health have not improved with increasing those diagnoses. So if we're going to give people diseases and call them diseases, then we need to figure out a way to fix those diseases or make them better. And if we can't, maybe they're not diseases at all. Sometimes people are diagnosed with cancers that are precancers that aren't really going to cause a problem anyway, but we go ahead and treat them or cut something out or give an ointment or a pill, and it actually makes people worse. Everybody watches the side effects as long as something scrolls down below on things that are deemed diseases now that weren't necessarily diseases of yesteryear. What's even scarier is you're given a diagnosis, then that goes on your electronic medical record that goes everywhere. It may go on your insurance form, so you might not be able to get life insurance because you have a disease or you have an abnormality that really is not causing you any problem, and it may never cause you any problem, but it might increase your insurance rates or even your insurability. Again, it may land you medications that may have more side effects than the disease diagnosis itself. And it puts you in a queue in the medical doctor's office for repeated follow-ups of this particular abnormality and tests that need to be done on a frequent basis or a yearly basis that follow this disease that we're not going to do anything about. Hypertension has been deemed the silent killer because of the abnormalities that can happen in the blood vessel with the change in the blood vessel thickness, the endothelium, the lack of production of nitric oxide, but the medications don't really change that. Lifestyle changes change the physiology that lead to an increase in blood pressure, not the blood pressure medications. The blood pressure medication may lower the blood pressure and decrease the pressure on the organs that the blood is flowing to, but it may also decrease the perfusion to places like the brain in older people that make dementia worse. So how much of our increasing dementia might actually be because everybody's on so many blood pressure medicine, they don't have any blood flow to their head? All because we picked an arbitrary number for everybody to have high blood pressure. It's kind of funny because I used to get irritated when people say, well, my blood pressure, it's normal for me. And I would say it's not normal for you. There's a blood pressure that's high and a blood pressure that's low, and you don't get to pick your own. But they weren't all that far off, because as we get older, the blood pressure probably should be allowed to drift up a little bit in order to get blood flow to our head. So a blood pressure that's high for an 80-year-old, or I should say a blood pressure that's high for a 40-year-old might not be high for an 80-year-old. So a blood pressure of 140 in a 40-year-old, there's something we need to address. There's too much salt in the diet, there's endothelial dysfunction. But an 80-year-old may be aging vasculature, and we need to make sure that they're perfusing their brain. So some of the numbers that we keep selecting down and down and down, we're ultimately getting to the point where the selection starts to cause a disease as well. So we have to be very, very careful. There are people that are given so many letters with psychiatric diseases that you can't keep the acronym straight. They just keep coming up with more and more and more. But nobody wants to take the time to actually sit and talk and find out what could be done to actually improve this person's mental stability. Depression may be normal and even well-founded with an acute loss, but just medicating people and not letting them get over that acute loss with various other means, including time, is a disservice. So we give people a diagnosis, put them on a medication, and never take them off. Our bodies are more responsive to that. They make confounding chemicals that make it more difficult to get off the medication. And again, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in that when you try to take people off of medication, their body overreacts and says, see, we can't take you off the medication because you have a disease. When in reality, you had an over-medication, your body has to adjust. So don't just accept being given a disease or a diagnosis. Ask why. Ask what you can do to reverse it. There is a really good chance that diet and exercise are going to be paramount in actually reversing these diagnoses. I was recently on Rip Esselstyn's podcast, Plant Strong Podcast, and he asked me what the easiest disease was to reverse with plant-based nutrition. And I said diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Nobody really needs to have them. It's a matter of changing lifestyle, exercise, and what people eat. Unfortunately, we're becoming more distracted even with the word disease and diagnoses, so that we don't have any hope or lose hope that we have the ability to influence our overall health outcome. So I would encourage you to take your own health in your own hands, stay away from distraction, have a goal, set a plan, work your plan, rework your plan, adjust your plan. And we would love to help you at drdulaney.com. If you have any interest in a consult or being part of our practice, we've got a giant website full of information, cooking demonstrations, mobility exercises, and demonstrations, weekly lectures that are all put up on our website. You can just have a membership for that. You can have consults with a dietitian once a month, consults with myself and a dietitian once a month, or a full membership. So go on over to drdulaney.com, DOCTORDULANEY, and check it out. You can also email me at Jami, Jami, at drdulaney.com, and see what we have that could potentially help you get on the right path to formulate a plan, set some goals, and achieve the health outcomes that you would ultimately like. Sorry for the delay in the podcast. Thank you always for listening. Let me know if you like the video feedback when it comes out, and talk to you next week. Thank you.